The rain hammered the streets of downtown Chicago like it was trying to wash away every broken dream in the city. James Carter, 30, 4 years old, single dad to a 7-year-old girl who was the only light left in his world, stepped out of the gleaming 60-story tower of Voss Global and felt the last piece of his hope shatter. His cheap suit was already soaked, his tie loosened like a noose he no longer cared to tighten, and his old leather briefcase, the one his late wife Anna had bought him on their 5th anniversary, felt heavier than the mortgage payments he was 3 months behind on. He had just failed the interview for the senior brand strategist position. Failed it so badly that the panel of 3 executives had exchanged those polite, pitying glances that said, "Thanks but no thanks," before the words even left their mouths. James walked. He didn't run, didn't curse, didn't even look back at the building that had represented his last real shot at pulling himself and little Sophie out of the tiny one-bedroom apartment that smelled of instant noodles and broken promises. He just walked, shoulders rounded against the downpour, shoes squelching with every step. Inside his chest, something was screaming. Not anger. Anger had burned out months ago. It was the quiet, crushing sound of a father realizing he might not be able to keep the promise he made to his daughter every single night. "Daddy's going to make it better, baby. Just wait." As he crossed Michigan Avenue, the memories came anyway, the way they always did when the world got too heavy. 3 years earlier, Anna had been laughing in their old kitchen, flour on her nose, teaching 4-year-old Sophie how to make heart-shaped pancakes. Then the diagnosis, stage 4, 18 months of hospitals, of watching the woman he loved shrink into someone he barely recognized, of holding Sophie while she cried for mommy, who couldn't get out of bed anymore. James had quit his steady marketing job at the agency to be with Anna full-time during her final months. No savings left, no network left, just medical bills that still arrived like clockwork, and a little girl who still asked, "When is mommy coming home from heaven?" Every time the wind chimes on their fire escape sang. He had scraped by on delivery gigs, night shift stocking at the corner store. Anything that let him be home when Sophie got off the school bus. But the landlord's latest notice was taped to their door this morning. Pay or vacate by March 15. Sophie had seen it. She hadn't said anything, just hugged his leg tighter than usual and whispered, "I can sleep on the couch so you can have the bed, Daddy." That was why he had applied to Voss Global. That was why he had stayed up until 3 a.m. for 2 weeks straight studying their sustainable tech campaigns, practicing answers in the cracked bathroom mirror while Sophie slept. He had walked into that interview room with his heart on his sleeve, talking about purpose and family and second chances, only to freeze when they asked about the 3-year employment gap. "I was caring for my dying wife," he had said quietly. The silence that followed had felt like a door slamming shut. Now he was walking away from it all. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with wet fingers. The screen showed Mrs. Patel, babysitter. He answered on the second ring. "Hi, James. Sophie keeps asking when you'll be home. She made you a picture at school today. It's well, she says it's you being a superhero." James swallowed the lump in his throat. "Tell her Daddy's on his way, okay? Tell her I love her bigger than the sky." He could hear Sophie in the background, her small voice bright despite everything. "Daddy, did you get the job? Can we get pizza to celebrate?" The question hit him like a truck. He stopped under the awning of a closed coffee shop, rain dripping from the edge onto his head. "Not this time, baby girl," he said, voice cracking. "But we're gonna be okay. Daddy's gonna figure something out, I promise." Sophie was quiet for a second, the kind of quiet that broke grown men. Then she said, "It's okay, Daddy. I still love you the most in the whole world. Even if we have to eat cereal for dinner again." James ended the call before she could hear him cry. He leaned his forehead against the cold glass of the shop window and let the tears mix with the rain. He had nothing left, no savings, no backup plan. Just love for a little girl who deserved the world, and a father who couldn't seem to give it to her. He started walking again, slower now, the weight of the day pressing him into the pavement. 10 minutes, 15. The rain eased into a steady drizzle. He was halfway to the bus stop when he heard it. Sharp, urgent heels clicking fast behind him. A woman's voice cutting through the city noise. "Mr. Carter." "James Carter, wait, please." He turned, confused. A woman was running toward him, expensive trench coat flapping open, designer heels splashing through puddles without a care. Her dark hair, usually pinned in a perfect chignon on the covers of Forbes, was coming loose in the rain. Elena Voss, billionaire CEO of Voss Global, the woman whose face was on the cover of the annual report he had memorized. She looked nothing like the untouchable executive from the interview photos. She looked desperate. She skidded to a stop 2 feet away, breathing hard, mascara slightly smudged under one eye. For a moment neither of them spoke. Cars hissed past. A siren wailed somewhere far off. Elena Voss, worth more money than James could count in 3 lifetimes, looked him straight in the eye and said the last 4 words he expected to hear on the worst day of his year. I made a terrible mistake. The end of first part, 15-minute mark. The story continues seamlessly below with no break in flow. Elena Voss stood there in the rain, chest rising and falling, and for the first time in years she didn't feel like the woman who commanded boardrooms and closed billion-dollar deals. She felt like the scared 22-year-old who had once slept in her car because she couldn't afford rent after her own parents died in a house fire. She saw that same fear mirrored in James Carter's exhausted eyes right now, and something inside her chest cracked wide open. I sat in on the final round of interviews remotely, she said, words tumbling out between breaths. I always do for senior roles. When you spoke about your wife, about taking 3 years to be with her, and your daughter, I felt it. I felt every second of it. My own mother raised me alone after my father walked out. She worked 2 jobs until cancer took her when I was 19. I built this company so no one would ever have to choose between family and survival the way she did. The way you did. And then the panel told me they passed on you because of the employment gap. She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. I fired the entire panel 10 minutes ago. James stared at her, rain dripping from his lashes.
What?
I ran out of the building the second security showed me the lobby footage of you leaving. I didn't even grab an umbrella. Elena stepped closer, her voice softening. James, I read your full file. The campaigns you led before your wife got sick. They were brilliant. Human. The kind of work that actually connects with people instead of just selling to them. Voss Global is launching a new family-first initiative next quarter. Paid parental leave, on-site childcare, mental health support for caregivers. We need someone who's lived it. Not just studied it, we need you. He shook his head, a broken sound escaping his throat. Ms. Voss, I appreciate it, but I bombed that interview. I froze. You told the truth, she interrupted gently. In a room full of people who have never had to choose between a paycheck and holding their dying spouse's hand, you told the truth. That's rarer than any MBA. Come back inside. Let me show you what the job really is. Not the one they described, this one. James looked down at his soaked shoes, then back at the woman who had literally run after him through downtown traffic. Something in her eyes reminded him of Anna, the same fierce kindness that refused to let the world stay cruel. He thought of Sophie waiting at home with her superhero drawing. He thought of the eviction notice. And for the first time in 3 years, a tiny spark of hope flickered in his chest. Okay, he whispered, but only if you let me buy you a coffee first. You're shivering. Elena Voss, the woman who owned private jets, smiled like he had just handed her the moon. Deal. They walked back toward the tower together, the rain now feeling less like punishment and more like a fresh start. Inside the private elevator that only she had access to, Elena pressed the button for the 58th floor, her personal office suite. I want you to meet someone, she said quietly. When the doors opened, James stepped into a space that looked more like a warm living room than a CEO's office. Soft lighting, children's artwork on one wall, a small play corner with toys, and sitting at a low table coloring was a little girl about Sophie's age. Elena's niece, Lily, whose parents had passed away the year before. Elena had been raising her quietly, away from the tabloids. Lily looked up. Aunt Elena, who's the wet man? Elena laughed, the sound lighter than James had ever imagined a billionaire could sound. This is James. He's going to help us make Voss Global a place where mommies and daddies never have to choose between work and family again. James crouched down, his wetsuit forgotten. Hi Lily, I have a daughter named Sophie. She loves drawing superheroes too. The little girl's eyes lit up. In that moment, something shifted inside James. He wasn't just accepting a job. He was stepping into a new chapter where maybe, just maybe, his broken pieces could help heal someone else's. The next few weeks were a whirlwind that felt like a dream he was afraid to wake up from. Elena didn't just give him the job. She gave him a whole new life. He started on a 6-figure salary with full benefits, including emergency childcare and therapy sessions he didn't even know he needed. Sophie's eyes, when he told her they weren't moving out, were something he would carry in his heart forever. She had hugged him so tight he thought his ribs might crack, then asked if she could meet the nice lady who runs after daddies in the rain. Elena made that happen too. The first time Sophie visited the office, Elena cleared her entire afternoon. She got down on the floor in her $1,000 pantsuit and helped Sophie build a Lego tower, tall enough to reach mommy in heaven. James watched from the doorway, tears stinging his eyes, as the most powerful woman in Chicago let his daughter put stickers on her laptop. Later that evening, over takeout in Elena's office, Sophie fell asleep on the couch with her head in Elena's lap. Elena stroked the little girl's hair and looked at James with an expression he couldn't quite name. "I never thought I'd get to do this," she said softly. "I built an empire, but I forgot to build a family. Watching you with Sophie, it makes me want to be better. Not just as a CEO, as a person." The James sat across from her, the city lights twinkling behind them. "You already are better, Elena. You ran after a stranger in the rain. Most people wouldn't even look twice." Their friendship deepened slowly, carefully, the way two wounded people learn to trust again. There were late-night strategy sessions where James's ideas, raw, emotional, grounded in real struggle, saved a major campaign that was tanking. There were Saturday mornings at the park where Elena pushed Sophie on the swings while James watched, heart full in a way he hadn't felt since Anna. There were quiet confessions, Elena admitting she hadn't taken a real vacation in 12 years, James admitting he still talked to Anna's photo every night. Then came the crisis. A viral scandal threatened to destroy Voss Global's reputation. False accusations from a competitor that their new sustainable battery line exploited child labor overseas. Stock plummeted. Board members panicked. Elena looked exhausted for the first time James had ever seen. In the emergency meeting, when everyone was shouting numbers and damage control, James stood up. "I've been there," he said simply. "When the world thinks the worst of you, and your back's against the wall, people don't need another polished statement. They need truth. They need to see us as humans." He proposed a radical idea: complete transparency. Live stream the factory audits. Bring in independent investigators. Let employees, real parents, real caregivers, speak on camera about what the company's family policies meant to them. Elena looked at him across the table, eyes shining with something deeper than gratitude. "Do it," she said. The campaign went viral for all the right reasons. Shares rebounded stronger than before, and in the quiet after the storm, Elena found James in his office at 11 p.m., Sophie asleep on the couch in the corner under a Voss Global blanket. "You saved us," she whispered. "You saved me first," he answered. She crossed the room, took his hands, and for the first time their foreheads touched. "James Carter, I ran after you in the rain because I recognized a good man when I saw one. But I kept running toward you every day after, because I fell in love with the way you love your daughter, with the way you fight, with you." He kissed her then, soft, trembling, full of every unsaid promise and every healed wound. Sophie stirred on the couch, opened one eye, and smiled the biggest smile a 7-year-old could manage. "Does this mean we get to keep Aunt Elena forever?" They laughed through tears. 6 months later, on a sunny Saturday in the same park where it all began to heal, James got down on one knee in front of Sophie, Elena, and a small crowd of their closest friends. He held out a simple ring, nothing flashy, because Elena had told him she didn't need diamonds, she needed him. "Elena Voss, you ran after me when I thought the world was done with me. Will you let me run beside you for the rest of our lives? Will you marry me and let me and Sophie be your family?" She said yes before he finished the question, pulling both of them into her arms while Sophie cheered loud enough to scare the pigeons. The wedding was small, intimate, filled with laughter and crayon drawings taped to the reception tables. Sophie walked down the aisle in a tiny white dress, scattering petals and whispering to her mommy in heaven that Daddy was happy again. Elena wore a simple gown and the biggest smile Chicago had ever seen. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, James lifted Sophie onto his hip and kissed Elena like the world had just been reborn. Years later, when people asked how the billionaire CEO and the single dad found each other, they always told the same story. The rain, the failed interview, the woman who ran, the man who stopped walking away, and every single time, James would look at his wife and their daughter, now 10 years old and calling Elena Mom, without hesitation, and say the same thing. Sometimes the best things in life don't come when you succeed. They come when you're brave enough to keep walking anyway, because someone, somewhere, might be running after you with the future you never dared to dream. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please do me a huge favor and smash that like button right now. It really helps the channel grow and brings more beautiful stories like this to people who need them. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that hope is still out there, even on the rainiest days. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, your miracle might be running after you right now. Keep walking. I'll see you in the next story.